Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Traversing the Stars podcast. How are my loyal listeners? Thank you for your continued support. As always, hit that subscribe button, everybody. We have an amazing show for you all because boarding the mothership is David Hewlett. This is part one of our epic interview where we discuss Stargate, the Swearing Jar, and Cabinet of Curiosities. Now come join me as we go traversing the stars.
Hello, Mr. Hewlett. So thank you so much for coming to the Traversing the Stars podcast.
A pleasure indeed.
It's totally my pleasure. I was so excited. I almost forgot the name of my own show.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign. It means the passion is running high.
Right. It's the excitement. Like I said, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I'm a big Stargate fan from Stargate Atlantis, both of them. It's a big deal.
It's they were so much fun. I miss them. I really do miss those shows so much.
They were some, I think, totally underestimated how great of sci-fi shows they were.
I'm amazed. There's still people. I mean, it's now got to the point where it's like sort of, hey, my parents used to watch you on television. It's like, oh God, shut up, kid. But yeah, it is. I'm still kind of taken aback by. I can never judge who's going to have seen it and who's not. You know, there are some people who are just like they're like huge nerds who are like, yeah, I've never watched it. And then there's like these the hippest, coolest, types of people that I would never feel cool enough to hang out with. And they're like, oh my God, we watched the show all night. Like I'm freaking out about it. So I can't, I can never, I never know what's going to happen. And I just kind of love it. It's got kind of a lottery feel to it,
It kind of feels like a special club where some of us just know about it, and we watch the shows and we talk about it. Some people have heard, they'll know the movie, but there's like a club of people who are they know Stargate and they're the best people to know. And, and it was that great sci-fi show. I mean, it's like now we have Star Trek and the Orville, but people sometimes don't remember that Stargate was better than all of them for that time period in the 90s.
I think, naturally I thought so. Specifically my performance, but the show too. Yeah, the show was good as well.
Yeah, I think what's so great about it, they did a great job. I mean, a lot of what you have for Star Trek is you have the shows now that are like the long season arcs. You have the ones like the old Star Trek from the 90s that are the single episode. Which
I like. I like the bottle shows. I miss those. Like the long going conspiracy things. I'm like, all right, already. Like I just don't have the attention span. I like my sci-fi in big, meaty, exciting chunks. That's there's some. There's some long form stuff.
Right.
I mean, like The Expanse is wonderful sort of space opera type stuff and Battlestar and things. But I do miss the old school. I always used to joke that we were like 80s sci-fi. I mean, because we rarely did we. Things would span a season, but it was always just sort of mentioned throughout. They were very good at having their stories within one or two episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think they did a great combination, and I think they were very prescient in how they did it, because you had the episodic feel to it, but you do have the long arcs that now shows are being to follow. Like Deep Space Nine did that later on as well.
Yeah,
or did that as well, where it's those long arcs that did give you the sense of continuity. It wasn't like some of the older shows you'll have episodic, but once the show's over, they never talk about it ever again. Stargate kind of bounces both of them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's a certain amount of writerly excuses in there too, where you go like, we did that in that episode and that didn't work, so we're gonna go over here and do this. It's a bit of that. Hey, look over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so. and I think what I also loved about it was the chemistry between the characters was fantastic. They're
a great bunch. The actors is so much fun. I mean, I know it sounds so cliche, but we got along like a house on fire. I mean, we cracked each other up. It really was. I mean, when they talk about the Stargate family, it really was kind of a Stargate family. It wasn't, again, it's weird. Like I've seen other shows where people are like, oh my God, they're lifelong bonded by, no, it was just kind of this, wonderful kind of, do you want to hang out? Yeah, we'll hang out. I mean, there was no pressure to it. There was nothing, it really was like a family. Like I was just, I think a lot of us had to relocate to work there as well. So that made a difference as well. I mean, it just, I miss a lot of them. I don't do a lot of conventions anymore. And so I just don't see them. But I get the odd, I'll throw a few insults back and forth between Paul McGillion or David Nichol or Joe Flanagan. I like to let him know what I'm had for breakfast because it irritates him. Just out of randomly let him know what I ate for breakfast. In fact, I should probably text him about the fact that I just had a chicken sandwich. So there you go.
Well, you should definitely do more conventions though. I guarantee there's a lot of us, especially. I don't think you've been on the Northeast conventions.
Not a lot.
Where the hell are you? We need you on our side.
It's a funny thing. Because I live in Toronto, for some reason that means I never get invited to Toronto Comic-Con. I don't know what the deal with that is. I'm always like, doesn't it make sense? Like, I'm right here. Why don't I? But it's like it never comes up. Or if it comes up, it's always like last minute, like, oh, hey, by the way, can you help us out on a panel? And I'm like, yeah, all right, fine, whatever. But yeah, the convention thing. I mean, I'm somewhat like McKay. I'm a bit of a hypochondriac and certainly a bit of a worrier. So warrior. But so the pandemic has just turned me into a freaking like hermit. I shamefully quite enjoy just sheltering in place. You know what I mean? Like my son and I were sort of discussing this the other day because he's 14 and there's nothing he wants to do more than just sort of hang out, watch YouTube and play video games. So, which is, I wish I could play more video games. I'm like old and I've got like vertigo now. So I've got this slight vertigo. So I can't play video games like I used to. But there's a few like Magic the Gathering I've got into recently, that kind of stuff. I love that. So so we've actually quite enjoyed being alone. And the idea of going into a place with lots of people all wanting to actually shake my hand is just horrific to me right now.
No, the dirty little secret, the lockdown. I'm in Rhode Island. The lockdown was some of the best. As someone who's a shut-in, it was like, oh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, I feel like, and there was no. I feel horrible because I know people died. It was a horrible thing. It continues to be a horrible thing. So I don't mean to make light of it, but at the same time, there was this. It took away all the FOMO. There was no fear of missing out. You weren't worried about missing auditions or missing any work opportunity. You were just getting by, and it made a lot of people question what they do. I mean, I've definitely. I do a thing called Tech Bandits, which is a kids science, technology, engineering, arts, and math thing. And my idea was just that. I was very lucky in that McKay and Stargate inspired a lot of people into science, and I realized that was something that really meant a lot to me. So I thought, I can, basically the kids teach me because I'm interested in everything and know nothing. So I have the curiosity, but none of the educational requirements to sort of back it up. So it's just been amazing. So that has been a huge focus for me, certainly during the pandemic. It used to be something I would go to the schools and do. Yeah. Now I can do it online. They got me into Twitch. They got me into Discord. I love it. Now I'm like, do I really want to go back? I'm not sure I want to go back to a school and icky children running around and things. Like, it's like there's so much easier when you can mute them. You know what I mean? So.
Well, like I said, I'm a high school teacher right now, and so during the lockdown, I was teaching. I got to teach from the deck of my from my house, and I was like, oh man! And then when the kid was a dick, you just kick him out of the room.
And what software are you using for that? Did you use Zoom for that?
Zoom. This is actually how I learned to use Zoom before. I've been doing interviews for a little while, for about 3 years, but I was always using Skype.
You got a lot of interviews. I was looking through this. There's a ton of stuff, including Stranger Things kids.
Yeah, Stranger Things kids.
I had to score that one.
Oh, I was surprised. I was asking about the kid from Miss Marvel, and they're like, well, how about these kids instead? I was like, sure, I'll do it. I'm in.
Sure. Yeah, just the biggest thing ever. We watched the last episode of that. Baz and I watched the other show. Well, Jane as well. We all, as a family, sat down and watched it. And then we took the dog out, and it was so funny because we were looking at people, being weird and looking at people's windows. But whenever we saw a TV, it was playing Stranger Things. I was just like, oh my God, people are worried about Netflix. I was like, I don't think they have to worry. Like, I mean, everyone on the planet is watching the show right now.
I've had a conversation before with my father about how things have changed in culture, right? And one of the things that we both agreed on was that one issue before Stranger Things in many ways was that people don't share common experience anymore. Because there's only used to be only 3 networks. We all watch the same show. Stranger Things is one of those weird shows where everyone watches it. It's one of the few times that happens in culture now, where there's one show where everyone knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because there isn't that same, it used to be sort of water cooler talk, and now you have to have lots of water coolers because there's so many different little factions.
Right.
You can truly be and watch what you want. I mean, I shudder sometimes when we sort of sit down as a family, and we've all got different screens watching different things. So I mean, that I love it and hate it. I mean, I love technology. I always have loved technology. I'm a very sort of optimistic about technology, despite all the horrendous things that we've done with it. But I do worry. Yeah, I do. I mean, it was one of the things I loved about Stargate was that people would talk about how they watched it as a family. And we're like the Disney of science fiction. Of course, now Disney owns every science fiction, but before that, it was that event that you could all sit down and watch together and stuff. And I love that aspect of it. At the time, I was hoping to be cooler, but as it turns out, you get older and have a kid, and these things start becoming much, much more important to you. So
yeah, I mean, I found Stargate late. At the Stargate SG-1 show had already been off the air when I finally found Stargate.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah. Okay. It was someone I knew who I can't remember where. I think it was reruns on Sci-Fi.
Right.
And the person I was living with at the time was like, "We're gonna sit down and watch Stargate." I was like, "No," and they're like, "No, we're definitely gonna watch it." I was like, "I'm not watching," because before what I think I had seen just maybe one episode of Stargate, and I was like, "No, that's like a cheesy sci-fi. I'm not watching that."
That was my experience. I'd watched like a couple of episodes. Right. I hadn't even watched them all the way through, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people like it. I'm sure there's some fun stuff to it." But as you say, it's the characters suck you in.
Yeah, and then the person I was living with, they sat me down and said, "No, I'm watching it. So there's only one TV, so you're watching it." I said, "Fuck, I'm not arguing with this." And I got so sucked into the characters, and I just got sucked in Stargate Atlantis. I got stuck in, Right. And it's just one of those things that once you start watching it, you start appreciating it for more than just what you quickly see on like a commercial or something. You just buy in completely.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, it's one of those things that I mean, when I got into this industry, I thought films were the way to be. You know what I mean? That was the way to go. But the reality is, there's something you can't do in films that you can do in television, and that's like create a relationship. Like a long-term relationship with characters, right? In a movie, you've got your setup, you got your setup, you got your turn, you've got your your big violent ending or whatever, but so you've got a very small period of time to get a sense of who these people are. Whereas in a show, you can slowly, like, I mean, what I love about McKay was that McKay had been established as a complete ass in SG-1, and then you got to sort of explain. I got 5 years to explain why he was such an ass, and and hopefully win a few people over in the process, so and I just don't think with films it's hard to do that, and again, watching a show, just dropping in and watching a show, especially science fiction, it's really hard to do that, I find, because there is there's a wobbly set and rubbery aliens that can throw you off pretty quick.
And I think I felt the same way. I mean, listen, I love Stargate. I became and I've all the DVDs now of it and all that other stuff.
Right.
But at the time, I can't remember which episode it was, but it was one episode from the first season of Stargate SG-1. Right. I was like, all right, so they're back on this another planet. They're talking about another group of humans. They're all who somehow speak English. I'm not dealing with this crap, And then it got
been there, done this.
Right. Yeah. And then as you're watching, you're just like, oh, the characters just you just get sucked into the characters completely. I mean, the interaction between McKay and Samantha Carter was fantastic. I mean, by itself was almost worth a show, just had these two characters together.
Well, because you've seen it before too, brother. You've seen people like that. You've seen these sort of like poor, long-suffering women in jobs that they're not being, getting the credit they deserve for it by these, straight white males who just think they know everything. I mean, I think it spoke to a lot of people. I mean, McKay, I used to joke that it was a combination of Brad and it was a combination of Brad and Cooper, but the two writers and producers, but he's based on, I mean, I worked in IT. You meet these people all the time. They can be brilliant. They can be lovely people. They just suck at interacting with other people. Like, they just suck at it. I mean, I don't know whether it's like an Asperger's thing or they're on the spectrum somehow. Probably they are, but they just don't get it, or they're just jerks. I mean,
I imagine it's someone who myself was the nerdy kid in high school, and I mean, I'm saying high school like wasn't nerdy before that too. I mean, I've been nerdy my entire life. Me too. You don't really get a lot of interaction with people because they don't want to talk to the nerdy kid. Yeah. So you probably just you have no skills. You don't have the skills to be interacting with people.
It's funny. I was very lucky that way because I was a nerd fighting nerddom for a long time. Like I was, leather jackets and cigarettes and, tried to be cool for a long time. But one of those, like, my watershed moment was like, I think in my 20s where I sold my BMW motorcycle and I bought a Toyota Corolla with a moonroof and I suddenly went, like this, I'm not pretending anymore. I'm just a nerd. And I've always been interested in everything. I love how things work. I love taking things apart. Sometimes I can put them back together again. I'm like a lifelong learner. I just absolutely love it. But I hate the education system. I hated school. I weirdly was able to, I think probably because of the acting, I had like jock friends, I had nerd friends, I had film friends, I had, stoner friends. I mean, I had a whole bunch of different people. So I sort of bridged a lot of groups. And I think that's something that, I mean, everyone's a geek about something, right? I mean, you just have to find what it is, and you get someone talking about something they love, and you've got a connection with them. I mean, that's, and I think it helps if you're genuinely interested. I love hearing about people's lives and jobs and interests, especially if they're things I don't know anything about. It's something actually does. That was Guillermo del Toro said that, where apparently he was, I don't remember whether he told me the story was with the guy who was at the bar, but he was in the bar restaurant of a hotel in Toronto one time, and in comes Guillermo del Toro, and there's this guy sitting at the bar, and he walked up and he sat down, he had a drink, he just said hi, and he said, and Guillermo said, so what do you do? And he was I think he was involved in some kind of cryptocurrency or something, anyways, but which again has a whole different connotation now, but at the time was just like, what? And so apparently Guillermo just grilled him about like how this works and what's this and what's that, and why did you get into that, like just like sucking him dry of all the information about himself and what he's interested in. And the guy said, what do you do? And he says, oh, I make films. And he's like, what? Oh my God, why aren't we talking about your stuff? He goes, yeah. No, I know about films. I don't know about crypto. So let's go back to, you know what I mean? And I think that's, right. I feel like I think that's really why I like the man so much, is that we have those similar kind of, he's interested in people. I could care less about people, but I'm interested in what they're interested in. If that makes sense. I think he's probably a better human being than I am, but
So if a younger McKay grew up now, where it feels like we're in the geek golden age, where what we were hiding about is now something that everyone now just openly discusses. I mean, who would have thought?
Well, people even pretend to be geeks now. Like I'm like, what? When did that happen?
Right. You go to the convention, you're like, I don't know if you've been a geek. I
tried so hard not to be a geek for so long. All of a sudden, there's like people actually trying to be them. I'm like, but again, I feel like everyone. It is the golden age. I think there's this kind of, there's that wonderful, we're in that wonderful, terrible time of the planet where we're all able to be ourselves, and we're all able to be different. And yet at the same time, we're always trying to find people like ourselves. And I mean, it leads to obviously a lot of conflicts and politics and stuff, but at the same time, it's like I said, I think that everyone geeks out about something. It doesn't matter how cool or jockish or whatever the other cliches are, emo. I mean, everyone's got something that they go, oh, this is exciting to me. And sometimes it's very accessible, sometimes it's incredibly inaccessible. But what I love about the internet and this kind of stuff is you get to talk to people about things that they're into that, in a way that you'd never interact with people the way we do on the internet now. And I absolutely love that, and try to use it with the tech bandits. It's the same thing. Like if I could find people who are interested in things that could introduce the kids to stuff that they wouldn't know they could do. Because I mean, I grew up, it was like you're either a lawyer or a doctor or a teacher. Basically, you had a few options, and those were respectable. Everything else was a disaster. And God forbid you said artist or rock star or actor. I mean, that's just pipe dreams, right? So.
It's kind of funny. I without name drop, I had to interview some before with Will Wheaton, and we're talking about being a geek.
Great. Yeah.
And he said, and because he wrote a book and I read it, we're talking about. He said a line.
I read the first one. I haven't read the second one yet. Is it like a follow up, or
is it an annotated version of the first one where he makes commentary on what he said in the first book, and the part and then
that'd be interesting though.
Yeah, it's a fascinating read. It's absolutely fascinating. And what got me, and I think you probably know the part, is he talks about being a jock. If you're a baseball fan or you love, like they've said, the Yankees, you are a sport nerd. You are a sport geek. That is the same damn thing. I was like, that is so true. That is the same damn thing. If you've been a jock your entire life, you're a geek. You're just a sport geek.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people talk about their man caves. I mean, I call mine the lair or the fan cave, because it's just things I'm a fan of. You know what I mean? Generally robots. I like robots. Will. Will was really interesting because I've watched his career, his entire career, and had a couple of tweets with him in the past. And I think he was, my sister and him were at a convention together, did some chatting as well. But he's fascinated me because he's almost managed to, I don't know, he sort of cracked it open for people, if that makes sense. I mean, I think there was definitely a sense of like, of us and them, even within the geek world. There were like people who did conventions and people who didn't do conventions. It's like, I'm a nerd, but I'm not that nerd. You know what I mean? And he sort of opened it up to everybody. He's got a great sense of, that he can talk about sports in the same way that he can talk about science fiction or writing or any of those things. I very much admire what he's doing. And when his book first came out, I snapped it up because I was, interested in reading it, but also just interested in supporting what he was doing, because I just loved that he had this. He was always very good online. He used the online world. He was also, I was fascinating to me was how he dealt with fame, like, and his like self-professed, he would say, I made mistakes. I shouldn't have done. What was I doing? And I've had those feelings as well, where you go like, oh, God, you get so worked up about the business and this and that and maneuvering. And the whole industry works on this fear that you're going to miss something or miss out on something. And, to sort of step back and go like, oh my God, I'm on a spaceship. You know what I mean? Like, there's just that. And I feel very fortunate that happened to me early enough that when Stargate showed up, I was able to enjoy that. Like, I found myself sort of having to explain it to Joe and stuff, who's just Joe is like a surf nerd. Like, that's he likes to Flanagan. This is and and Momoa is Momoa is an artist. I mean, Momoa is like doing found art and writing poetry and books, and I mean, like, I can't keep up with that guy in any way, but they're all geeks about their own thing, and they struggle to understand the science fiction sometimes. And I was like, no, this is why people like this, is because of this stuff. It's like, yeah, nerd, whatever, so.
That's funny, because you think of if you thought about the actors from the outside, because obviously people like me don't know these people personally in any way, shape, or form. Right. You would assume Joe would be more likely to be the artist. Momoa would be the surfer dude. You would think he's
well, he surfs too. Aquaman's got to surf. Come on. I mean, like,
that cliche at least then holds.
Yeah. The
world hasn't totally flipped upside down.
Right. Well, I think he was, what is he? He was like, I can't remember if he was born in Iowa or born in Hawaii, but it's but I think his father is Hawaii. So he sort of stands between two worlds. This very sort of American middle America kind of an existence, and this sort of wonderful rich Hawaiian history and stuff as well. So, and he's just, I mean, he's an amazing guy, just an amazing guy. He's real. Like, he's a real, I mean, he's real. He's like a giant, well, he's a giant, but he's like a giant Great Dane puppy in a China shop. I mean, but yeah, I love it. Him and Joe were inseparable. They still are, I think, to some extent. Momo and JoJo.
my only interaction ever with Jason Momoa, this is a very short story. He went to a comic book convention. It may have been Boston. Yeah. And I made the mistake of going with my wife, right, who wanted the autograph, and he shook her hand and she walked away. She's like, I'm not washing that hand. I was like,
I'm never washing that hand again.
Yeah, I was like, motherfucker. I was like, oh, I hate Jason Momoa.
Yeah, he's a ridiculously attractive and funny man. But that's the other thing. He's hilarious.
Yeah,
like, he's just, I mean, he's got an amazing sense of humor. I mean, again, I can't profess to know him particularly well now. He's on a level that is a rarefied air of that level. But at the same time, I mean, See happened because of him. I mean, we actually weren't getting along. We'd had a big fight, and I was sort of resigned myself to the fact that I wasn't going to be speaking to Aquaman again. And then this part came up on See, and I got the audition breakdown for it, and I was like, no. I was like, Jane's like, well, why? My wife is like, why not? I'm like, because it's Jason's show. I don't want to be on a freaking show with someone I'm not getting along with. He hates me, I hate him, we're done. And I was like, forget it, I'm not going for it. And then the agent's like, look, you got to go in for it. They asked for you, you got to, and I'm like, I was like, okay, fine, I'll go on the tape, but I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
And so I went on tape, and then they said they wanted me to do it. And I was like, well, no, I can't. No, I'm not doing it. You have to talk to Jason first. I don't want to show up on set and have Jason going like, oh man, And then the guy goes like, well, Jason suggested you for it. I'm like, what? I said, wait. I said, whoa. What did he say? What did he say? And they said, as Tropper said, he said, yeah, we don't get along, but he's a good actor. And it was amazing because I got on set and I have a fair amount of ego myself as well as McKay. And, but I sort of sucked it up and walked up and said, look, Jason, I know you didn't have to make this happen. And I appreciate it. Thank you. And, oh my God, it was like the floodgates were down. We're showing photos of the family. We're like right back to the Stargate days. It was absolutely wonderful. So I think it's probably one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite jobs now, is because I feel like I got my friend back, which is just, kind of a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And I got to blow lots of crap up. Too, so
that's cool. I never heard that story. I didn't know you ever had a thing, a row with Momoa.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. It was stupid film industry stuff, and it was like broken telephone stuff, and it was so frustrating because the problem is, I mean, when you get as famous as Jason is at this point, it's rare that you get to actually talk to Jason. It's always through a million different people, and they all have their own different things. And we'd made a movie together, and there was some stupid decisions made by people in charge, and he felt that I should have been able to fix them. And I was like, if I could, I would, but I'm not Aquaman. So, like that kind of stuff. So it was I completely understood why he was angry. But of course I'm a little McKay that way too, where we literally went toe to toe in a convention. We're like shouting at each other, and I suddenly went like, Jesus, he's really tall and he's got a really big entourage and arms.
That's ballsy of you.
Well, no, it's just stupid. I mean, honestly, that was just stupid. But yeah, it was really unfortunate. And it was really weighing on me. Like because I truly love Jason. I mean, we made this little movie, this Dog's Breakfast movie, he came in to see it. He was so supportive. He was always, I mean, we were oil and water always. We were always completely different. I mean, I'm the absolute opposite. As laid back as Jason is, I am uptight. As free thinking and cool as he is, I am just, I am a British, uptight little settler guy. It's amazing that we ever got along, but I always very, very much valued his friendship and his enjoyment of things. He loves stuff. He's like, he geeks out about a lot of stuff. Now he has the money to geek out about things a lot more. But yeah, it was really unfortunate. So I'm still incredibly appreciative that because he did not have to. There's a lot of other actors. You know what I mean? We're a dime a dozen. I mean, if he, but the fact that this came up and that he stuck his neck out for it I very, very much. I will always be very, very thankful to him for that.
Well, maybe that's his way of burying the hatchet as well, huh?
Maybe. Yeah. It's better than him burying a hatchet, which I also know he's very good at too. So, yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, once again, back to a little bit of Stargate, between McKay and Carter had that thing. And then, but later on, when they finally got to Atlantis, they seem to have buried that as well. And they seem to have at least respected each other. Yeah.
It's like this, it's kind of like, I feel like she befriended a dodgy uncle. Like it's that kind of guy. You just like, oh God, what's he going to say? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was definitely, I mean, there's only so much and there's only so far you can go with that stuff. The reality is, I mean, I don't think a McKay character would exist the way he does now, if that makes sense. I mean, I understand it. I mean, there's just people no longer in it. I grew up in a time when people, they would just accept this, not accept it, but they wouldn't like it, but they'd be like, oh God, what a jerk. Oh, he said stupid crap and he's sexist and whatever, misogynist. And that you just sort of have to put up with it. And that was part of being a woman in the business world. And now people are like, well, wait a second. Why the hell should we put up with that? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Who cares how brilliant he is? He's a jerk. So I think it would be really interesting to see how that would play out now, I think. You know what I mean? But at the same time, he's iconic in that way, because I feel like he represents a dying breed of brilliant minds that just don't have the social skills or the maybe it's just the experience with brilliant female scientists. I mean,
Well, I think one thing I always wondered about is that obviously McKay was written in a very specific way for Stargate SG-1 to be a foil for Carter.
Yeah,
I wonder if the writers, because when they used the character in Atlantis, I wonder if they were trying to think to themselves, now what do? We created this asshole character, and now we want to use him again, but
and you don't want to water him down too much, too, right?
It can't be someone totally different. You can't make him a totally different character, then it's not McKay. So that's an odd thing they put, the situation they put themselves in.
And I was definitely on edge about that. Like I remember one of the first episodes, one of the guys, the guy played Grodin. There was a scene where we come through the gate and he came and he slapped me on the back and then went to shake my hand as sort of, behind the scenes thing. And I just looked at him like, what the, don't touch me. And he was like, what was that? And I was like, dude, I'm McKay. No, I'm not shaking hands with anybody. I mean, like, no offense, but that's, right. And so you're constantly looking for those things where, I remember talking to Tori once at one point where we go running into the shuttle and I sit in the front passenger seat. And she's like, well, wouldn't McKay give his seat up to his, to his boss? And I'm like, no, he wouldn't. I said, if you want me to give up my seat as an actor and you think there's a reason why it makes more sense for me to do that, I'm happy to do that. But as McKay, no, absolutely not. He's a freaking jerk. He wants shotgun. You know what I mean? Like that's right. Like he's that guy. So I think it's important to keep finding those things. And again, I same thing with Jeannie when we had Kate in. That's that sibling rivalry. Man, they are vicious. I mean, I know that. My sister, I did a little bit of writing. My sister's an actual writer, but we're both actors. I mean, there's a competitive nature there as well. And not to mention the fact that she's still like a 10-year-old to me. I'm like, what? Who takes you seriously? You're gonna run a show? Good luck. You know what I mean? Like it's like you're a child. What do you know? So you'll never lose the little sibling aspect of these.
So also I wondered about you when you were in Atlantis, right? And you had obviously as your McKay, and they brought on into the show Amanda Tapping came to now star in Atlantis. Now you have the issue where McKay is no longer in some ways the smartest guy in the room anymore. Were you ever concerned about what those do to the character?
But he always thinks he is. I mean, that's the beauty of it. I mean, I think probably the more he complains about being the smartest guy in the room is the more insecure he's getting about and perhaps not being the most, I mean, I think, look, this is the weird thing about science and scientists and intelligent people is that, you're not always right. You're not always, you take risks in any of those things. And I think that there are, you can be right most of the time. And I think McKay felt like he was right all the time and would come up with excuses why he wasn't when he wasn't. So it was, I loved it because it added a whole, talking about owing someone a job. I mean, the fact that Amanda Tapping was so incredibly sort of open and giving to me being such a weasel on SG1. I mean, she just let me play. It was amazing, I'm a jerk, but I'm not that kind of a jerk. Usually I have like 5 younger sisters. I tend to be a little more respectful of women, I hope. There was plenty of time when I was younger that I was perhaps not as good at it, but so it's important to have the other person in a scene like that. You don't, just because you're treating them like an object in the scene, you can't treat them like an object like that when you're actually shooting the scene. It's gotta be a back and forth, and it only works if it's a back and forth. You know what I mean? So the fact that she let me sort of play McKay the way I saw him that first time round, I think is what did it. I mean, if she'd been protective of her turf or her, her sort of position in the SG1, hierarchy, I think she could have made it a lot more difficult for me, and I could have just come across as a complete and absolute ass, which I did to some extent, but I still like to think he was fun in that. You know what I mean? It's fun sometimes to watch those people flounder. Well,
but I think what worked with the characters that, and was, I think Stargate as a whole, is that you were dealing with non-perfect people. Like a lot of sci-fi will always have like that. Everyone's good. Everyone's inherently, I'm a good person. We're all good people. Stargate was a little bit more like, nah, McKay's an asshole. ONeil.
There's issues. They all have some issues.
Right. ONeil's a little bit of a schmuck.
Yeah.
Jackson, it's kind of annoying a little bit.
Contemporary. and contemporary too, right? Like in a way, it was just like it's like a day at the office. You know, everyone has an experience of like people that they're like, oh my God, I freaking hate them. They may not be the most evil person in the world, but they're just the most irritating to you at that point in your life or your job. I mean, one of the most enlightening experiences I had was working in IT for a while, because you'd meet these people who were incredibly good at aspects of their jobs, but they were incredibly bad at others, or they were incredibly lazy, or they were incredibly duplicitous, or, you know, like they were, I mean, you know, the stuff and stupid, like really smart people making stupid mistakes as well. Like, you know, I always joke about, you know, we had a consultant come in at one point, very high paid consultant who I was very jealous of, and she smoked, and it really irritated me. She wanted to update all the systems, and I said, okay, well, I'll do a backup before we do that. And she's like, no, it's fine. It's just it's an update. It doesn't affect the data. And I was like, okay. She went off to have a cigarette. Then they went off and had lunch, and, you know, a big lunch discussing whatever consultant stuff we're doing. I'm getting paid like $9 an hour. But I did. So I thought, I'll just do a backup while they're doing that. So I backed up everything and then watched her erase like everything.
Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly how she did it, but it was like some kind of a, like, whether, you know, start from scratch or you know, whatever. And I just saw her face drop. Like, I just saw her go, oh God. I was like, I gotta back up. I was like, because I just been there so many times. I've made those stupid mistakes so many times. And she was not stupid. She was incredibly good at what she did, and she knew what she was doing. But sometimes you just don't. You know what I mean? You just don't think it through, or you're jonesing for a smoke or something. I don't know, but you know, I am very impulsive. I do things without thinking a lot. It's sort of an ADHD thing. But at the same time, I know my backups, you know, because I know I'm going to do something stupid sometime, and it's never going to be when I expect it. So,
well, one thing I found, because I obviously did some research on you before the interview, you know, prepare. Such it is.
Well done, sir.
Oh, thank you. And it kind of remind me, and I had the voice of my father popped in my head, which is, he always still tells me, always have a backup plan. Yeah. And when I read about you, when you went into to acting, and that you ran a Darkle Media, which is a website design. You found a few films. Was that your backup plan, or, you know, were you thinking, if acting does not work out, I got this? Or,
you know, the weird thing is, the acting's the backup.
The acting was the backup. Wow.
I love acting. I hate being an actor. Being an actor is the stupidest job on the planet. You basically job interview for a living. Like, it's just stupidity. I don't understand it. I can work incredibly hard to get jobs and not get them. I could do nothing and get more jobs than I've ever got in my life. I don't understand it. It drives me crazy. There's nothing scientific about it. It seems random. It seems lottery-like. I mean, it helps to be able to deliver once you get the job, but getting the jobs, I've never understood. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I think Bryan Cranston had a great quote where he said, it's like finding a wallet. You know what I mean? If you find the wallet and it's got your name in it, then that's your job. Like, the acting job is the wallet. If you pick it up and it goes, oh, there's my ID. This is mine. This is my job.
Right.
He says, but most of the time you pick up the wallet, it's got someone else's picture in it. And you can't pretend it's yours. You can't go, oh, if only that wallet was mine. That's the only way you can look at it. You can't go, it was never yours you know what I mean? Like, these parts are such a weird, you know, it could be someone in a different mood, or someone, or a slightly different writer, or a little tiny bit of a different background. And all of a sudden you're just not in their world, you know? And then as you get older, you realize that you work with people, you know, I mean, there's just once people work with you a few times and they go, oh, he's going to remember his lines, he's not going to be a jerk, then great, you know? And in some cases, even when you're a jerk, they let you show up again. But, you know, so the IT stuff, the tech stuff is what I love. I've always loved that. If you ask, I keep joking to my wife. I said, like, I'm retired now, right? She's like, no, it doesn't work like that. I'm like, no. I'm just going to stay. I've got robots. I got things to play. Like, if I could do this full time, I don't think you'd ever see me act. I mean, I just, you know, the thing is, it doesn't, you know, playing in your basement doesn't pay very well. So, you know, it's one of the reasons why I started Tech Band. I think it was just to have an excuse for why I do what I do. And my hope is just to share some of my curiosity with kids who are perhaps getting that pummeled out of them in a school environment, which I do see a lot of and really frustrates me. It happened to me. You know, and also if you're not neurotypical, like if you're not good at sitting in a classroom and learning stuff, I could never figure out. I have friends who are very smart and would say like, well, no, it's not about the math. It's about learning how to think. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll hire someone. You know, but as I get older, I realize there's just so much stuff that's fun to learn that you never would have thought of if you're not introduced to it. So, but yeah, the tech stuff. I mean, with Darkle, it was my sister and I, one of my other sisters. I've got like 5 younger sisters. So this is Moira, who's like a brilliant graphic artist and artist, you know, like the hand artist, sculptors, all sorts of stuff. And we got into web design very early, and we tried to start a company that was internet for film and television, except that nobody in the film and television industry knew what the internet was or why they would need it. We ended up doing the website for Cube just for free. We just did it ourselves because we thought it was cool. We came up with some fun ideas, and I did one of the early forums that you had to write in Perl script and stuff. And that's where I discovered that the forums are just a disaster because you actually have to moderate them. And we had so much fun doing it. We got hired by a couple of other companies but they were always really sort of future thinking people with a little tiny bit of money. So of course, what they say, if you're too early, you're too late. You know, I mean, about 10 years after I gave up, or 5 years after I let it go, it was, you know, it was a huge industry, but I really enjoyed it. I also don't think it should have been so expensive. So I would never charge enough for anything. I was always like, oh, it's just fun. We'll do it. You know, my sister's like, what? You know, like, no, my acting money's going towards paying for the web design firm and things, you know. But that was always the weird thing. Yeah, the acting is always paid for the stuff that normally people get paid for, if that makes sense. Like it's always, the problem with acting is that when a job comes in, it's all consuming, right? Partially because I love it. And also because it's just the nature of the industry. You shoot it all at one time. You have this incredibly intense period of time while you shoot a series or a movie or whatever it is, and then you're free again. But during that very intense time, it's very difficult to have another company running unless you've got someone else to run it for you, because it just gets dropped, right? So I keep saying to my son, I was like, you got to find a job that you can set up and that you can sort of ignore for a few weeks at a time. You know, that's the key.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit, and you can, well, you know, off the air, you can say no. But one thing I do as a teacher, I teach, the school I teach is technically it's a drug and rehab high school for kids.
Oh, wow.
In recovery.
Okay.
And one thing I do is that I have guests that sometimes I interview come on, talk to them as well. So if you ever feel like talking to some, it's a small class, anytime you want to during the school year, I will contact you, and I would love it if you talk to them.
Absolutely.
It also makes me look impressive too, so it helps me out.
Oh, it's a kid. I mean, if they're in high school now, they're probably like, you know, oh, my grandparents used to watch you. But no, that's fascinating. Okay, that's interesting, because I mean, I think oh my God, the whole addiction and you know, drugs and alcohol, all that kind of stuff, man, that is. I mean, I started acting when I was 16, so I've seen a lot of that. I've seen it destroy a lot of people. You know, and I've seen people pull through it, and you know, I've had my own struggles with stuff in the past. Mainly, you know, alcohol was a big one for me. I love my booze. I don't really drink now anymore, but yeah, no, I'd love to talk to them.
That's it. This group of students, they all have some problem. Usually it's either alcohol abuse or drug abuse. But what occurs is they come to the school for, you know, usually it's willingly to deal with their problem. But during rehab, or they're rehabbing with the clinicians, I teach them English, and then they learn history and science, everything else while they're there. Cool. So it's a small class. It's only like usually 6 to 8 kids. But
what English are you doing? What sort of stuff do you do deal with them?
Oh, I love Shakespeare. Shakespeare is my thing. So there's always Romeo and Juliet. This summer,
I was a big Macbeth fan. Like Romeo and Juliet was a bit sucky for me. I like daggers and ghosts and shit.
I teach Macbeth. See, what happened is at my school, prior to June, I was teaching at a therapeutic school in the same building. It was kids for anxiety, autism, things of that nature. But that high school went out of business. So they moved me to the,
really?
It's a whole thing with them. But so they moved me to the, they call it Anchor. It's the drug and rehab place. So then I teach them. So I'm starting this summer, actually starting Monday with these kids. And we're starting with a thing on rhetoric. So we're going to read speeches, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Patrick Henry, and then we're going to have them write their own speech based on some cause they want fixed.
Huh.
So that's my goal for the first my first 5 weeks with these kids.
You know, you might want to look into. There's a book that I just read called Cultish.
Okay.
And it's about, her theory is basically that cults are not, created by, it's not the people that attract people to cults, it's the language.
Okay.
And it's got it, and it's like, I'm talking about rhetoric, talking about like taking words and changing their meaning, and it's almost like grooming, but it's this, she talks about everything from Scientology to Jonestown. It's what I like about it is it's not, it's perfect for me. It's more of a sort of from a distance kind of approach to it. It's not it doesn't get too much in the weeds, but it just talks about certain stories and a history of this stuff. And it really is interesting because it's how it's being sort of weaponized now with even like health apps or Peloton, or everyone has these everyone's got this like language that they use to try to sort of like corner off their people and keep them in their group and stuff. But it might be, if you're going to talk about rhetoric and stuff, that'd be a fun one. It might be a fun one that's very.
Can the title one more time?
It's called Cultish.
Cultish. And do you remember the author's name?
I don't remember the author, but it's honestly, it literally came out in the last like 5 months or something. So it should come up pretty quick when you look for it. I'll have a look now, actually, while we're chatting. I'll look.
No worries. But like I said, one cool thing that we do in September, like I said, I was connected to the school before I was teaching with them. So now I'm the one in charge of it, which is weird. But what they do is in the beginning of September, or at the end of September, they do Recovery Week, which is a celebration of recovery. And last year I brought in four guests that I've spoken to talk with them. We had like Dee Pfeiffer, we had Jim, whatever his name, the guy who did Mississippi Burning, a couple of other people.
Wow.
And they talked to the kids about recovery because they were in recovery when they were at some point in their life as adults. So they talk and they send questions out. Oh,
that's the link to the book.
All right, very cool. Thank you. And they talk about recovery, and they usually submit questions. I'll type them out, stuff like that. It's usually a pretty good time. Usually about 20 minutes long.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, happy to be a part of it. Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Sorry to put you on the spot about that, but as soon as I heard, I was like, "Dang, I gotta make this happen."
Yeah. No, I mean the education stuff. I'm a bit of an education nerd at this point. I'm so. I mean, I love it when it works for people. Like that's fantastic, but I just see it not working for a lot of. I see people going into school with this amazing childish sense of curiosity, which for some reason I somehow still have, I feel. But but I think, like for myself, it was crushed within a couple of years of school. All of a sudden learning was something that was a bad thing. Like when you go into school, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to learn? This is going to be amazing. And then as soon as you hear learn after a couple of years of school, you're like, can't be interesting if I'm going to learn something. And that just seems so wrong to me.
Oh, I've seen my share of bad teachers at the schools I've taught. I like to think I'm not one of them. I try not to be.
Right.
But I've seen the teachers, the YouTube videos pop on. They sit down. All right, guys, let's watch a YouTube video on whatever thing we're talking about. I'm just like, all right, whatever. That's not teaching. And
I mean, I watched a guy come into a classroom, and they would talk about that. He would type in the search on his Google, and up would pop God knows whatever. And then he'd go, so shouldn't see. And I'm like, oh, God, dude, just do your homework. Just have a look at them last night, or whatever. Maybe don't use the browser you've been using is the other one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The ads coming up.
I think I know that teacher. I think I saw it with that teacher before.
There's a few of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I try to do a little bit more. I mean, when we do, one thing I love about Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth, because they're plays, you can stand and act with the kids in front of the classroom. And, and I'm a bad actor, so I purposely overact because I'm horrible at it, but it's funny and it works. It's okay to make fun of the teacher once in a while, how bad I am, and that makes it worthwhile.
Well, again, if you're human, I mean, the teachers that I remember are human. They weren't superhuman. They were anyone who was like an official, anyone who was just scary. I mean, even scary teachers could be fun when they were human, but that makes a big difference. And also, I mean, I remember as a kid thinking, when I'm grown up, I'm not going to talk down to kids. And when kids have problems, I'm gonna realize that maybe they're not big compared to adult problems, but they're big compared to. And I remember that. I remember feeling that, and my son reminds me that I forget every so often. But it's the educational thing. I mean, people look for, when people, I struggle for an answer for how the hell we're going to solve all of the crap that's happening on the planet right now and to the planet, and the mess we're making of so many different things and politics and the rest of it. hate. And I always come back to, I think the one magic pill is education. I feel like if you can get kids talking, to other kids who might have a different idea and they're not yelling at each other, or you just help them, just point them at sources of information that they can make their own decision on. I think it goes so far. And I think it's the only thing I can think of. It's the only thing I can think of that might actually solve everything. You know what I mean? And yet we don't spend enough money on it. We don't, it's the issue of, I have this with my own kid where it's like, grade 4, you're like, grade 4 is not most important. Like, how are we going to make grade 4 work? And then he's in grade 5. You're like, okay, yeah, grade 4, grade 5, we got to figure out as they move through it, you lose interest in. And I was trying, one of the things we start with Stargate, with Tech Bandits was I'm trying to stay in, I want to stay in that 10 to 14 zone or 10 to 16 zone, because that's when I found acting. Yeah. Like I found acting when I was like 13, 14 years old. I didn't realize that's what it was before. And, it was actually Vincenzo, the guy who did Cube, came up to me in the playground and said, do you want to make a movie this summer? And I was like, no, I'll think about it. Because I was a pretentious jerk. Remember, I was trying to be cool. Yeah. And that struck up a friendship and a love of filmmaking in me that changed my life. I don't know God knows, I'd probably be in the freaking, I'd be in with the addictive kids, because luckily I got addicted to making films and to acting and to the process of little indie films with my friends. And that's how we spent our summers. That's how we spent every free second we had. And it's lovely to me that, 40 years later, I'm still making films with my friends. I mean, that is only now they pay you for it, which is right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say, I think the big problem with education, I don't think it's not the students, because the students are gonna be the students no matter what they are. And it's not even sometimes, I think, the money, it's burnout. And there seems to be no great structure to help with burnout. And I've seen the burnout teachers. I've felt burnout with time myself. There doesn't seem to be.
I get it with Tech Bandits,
right? And I think that's what the problem is. Because kids are difficult. It's one of the few jobs where the person you're supposed to be helping is fighting you back, trying not to let you help them. But I think,
they're not designed to learn in groups of 20 or 30 or whatever it is. They each want their own. I mean, they talk about these IEDs, these what they call independent educational programs. Everyone needs their own IED, because, like we said, we know everyone geeks out about something. They're not always the same thing. Right. In fact, in a class of 20, it's probably 20 different things, unless it's Fortnite or something like that. But or Roblox now. But it's just, as you say, it's like, I should say, I'm not teaching anyone anything. I'm not a teacher. I don't have, I could never call myself that. I don't have the skills. I don't have the patience. I don't have the education. I just like the idea that if there's a way to inspire them into learning themselves. I mean, we have the filtered collection of the entire human knowledge online. If you want to know anything, you can find it online. Anything at all, no matter how specific or weird or wonderful it is, you just need to want to do that. And as a kid, if I'd had access to the internet, I don't know what I'd do, man. It'd be just amazing. I mean, I was always in libraries and stuff, trying to find books that I wasn't supposed to read about gunpowder or whatever. I mean, that was my rebellion, was trying to find information I'm not supposed to have as a kid. Right. And yet they've got all this stuff there. Unless someone's there to go like, look at this, and they go, oh my God, that's cool. You know what I mean? Like that's the beautiful thing is, like, I mean, TikTok, I'd love to master TikTok, because, I know exactly what my son's going to be interested in based on what what he's seen in the last little while, what games are going to be popular, or what, they're all going to go see the Minions now, the new Minion movie, because there's some new meme about that. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if we could somehow be using that to actually educate kids instead of just like, rotting their brains?
Right. Well, like that, for obviously, because it's a podcast, I tell myself, where the clicks are, they're in TikTok, trying to get people to come to it. But I have not figured out. I feel like I'm 10 years too late to figure out how to make it successful.
I don't think we need like more, more older white guys running around doing TikTok. Probably,
Yeah, I thought about it. I think I even have an account, but I was like, I can't get myself mentally to, like, I feel like I'm just too old to make it work.
Me too. I actually tried doing some stuff that was Tech Bandits related. And my son said, Dad, just delete it. Get rid of it. You can't. you know. And I don't mind making an idiot of myself. I got no problem. Sorry, I've got bubble tea. I realized I just got all the bubbles.
Oh, no worries.
He goes, I choke and die. It was his last interview.
You know, but that would be a hugely successful interview for me. I'd be like, the very last.
Yeah, this is it. This is gold. Yeah. If I could just make him laugh at the right time, he's a dead man. And I'll be, that's it. All those grandparents will be so upset that their McKay died.
Right.
Luckily, David Hewlett did not choke to death on his bubble tea and returned for part 2 of his epic interview where we discuss the swearing jar and the cabinet of curiosities, releasing soon.